Okay, back to that migrant camp situation. What's fascinating now is that the American people are aware of this. Congress holding hearings on this yesterday for the first time in the new year. A Quinnipiac poll found that 70% of Americans think that what's going on in New York City is a crisis. That's the word that was used. Mayor Eric Adams' approval rating now worse than Bill de Blasio's when he left office. Eric Adams now in that same poll, Quinnipiac, 37%. Wow. Really bad. For more on all this, let's welcome back in reporter for the Daily Caller, Brianna Lyman, and Project 21 National Advisory Board member, radio host Christopher Arps. Chris, 37%. That Bill de Blasio was right around 37% for the majority of the time that he's been in office. Eric Adams, still in what should be the honeymoon phase of his time as mayor.
Yeah, this whole migrant situation is engulfing Mayor Adams' mayoralship. He took a trip down to the border a couple of months ago, decrying the situation, saying that it's costing the city of New York $3 billion to try to clothe and house and feed these folks. It was very funny that he called for a border czar while he was down there. I guess he forgot that we already have a border czar. But this border situation is going to be a big Achilles heel for the president. That's why he took that trip down to Mexico to the border on his way down to Mexico. And let's not forget, Rob, that in 2024, all four of the border states have Senate races. And so I'm sure the Democrats are very concerned about that going forward.
Yeah, Brianna, Mayor Adams is upset, but New York's a sanctuary city, just like some of these other cities. And, let's even forget about the migrant crisis. The crime has gone, so high. And also, I think a lot of people were thinking when he got into office, because he's a former police officer, that maybe things would change.
Yeah, well, first, every city and every state is a border state and a border city. And Eric Adams is now experiencing the realities that all of our border states do experience on a day in and day out basis. And I will say, I think it's a little surprising that his approval rating is so low, because I feel like he is one of the only Democrats that has been consistently coming out telling the Biden administration, we need help, we need some solutions. And granted, he wants money as solutions rather than actually solve the problem, which is deport these people and put a wall up, right? But nonetheless, I think that liberals in Manhattan, they're disappointed because they don't want to see it. They want the migrants to be there because, it's nice to be a liberal and let everybody come in, but they don't want it in their backyard. They want to push it somewhere else. And so Eric Adams is kind of juggling with what his constituents want versus what he knows and Republicans know is the right thing.
Yeah. Meantime, yesterday, Congress holding their first hearings. They promised they were going to hold hearings on a range of topics yesterday. COVID spending and Biden's border crisis were the topics that were addressed on Capitol Hill. Just to give you an idea about how petty Congress can be at times, before the hearing got started yesterday in Washington, members, particularly Democratic members, were debating whether or not they should say the Pledge of Allegiance. Take a look.
As members know, we pledge allegiance every day on the floor, and I don't know why we should pledge allegiance twice in the same day to show how patriotic we are.
The pledge shall not be led by an individual who supported an insurrection against the government of the United States in any way. First, ask Mr. Gates if he'll support the amendment, to make sure that someone who led an insurrection against the United States doesn't make a mockery of the Pledge of Allegiance and stand before this committee with their hand over their heart, claiming to support the Constitution.
When I watch this, I feel like it's my kids arguing at the dinner table over, who got more presents at Christmas time. I mean, they're supposed to get along, right?
What message, Chris, does that send to the American people?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hill that you want to die on, talking about should we say the Pledge of Allegiance or not. It sounds like to me just more cases of Trump derangement syndrome. They just can't let January 6th go, and they're embarrassing themselves with this spectacle they had yesterday.
Brianna, this entitlement from these migrants in New York City, the New York Post was some reporting yesterday that it's activists filling their heads with nonsense about how they should act. And I was thinking about this. We're hearing reports. These migrants were not good hotel guests. The Watson Hotel, 4-star hotel, Upper West Side, one night, about $450 on average there to stay there. Drug use in hotel rooms, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying. We heard one report of 2 people having sex in the stairwell. Okay, so not stuff you typically are used to seeing at a luxury New York City hotel, but they didn't want to go to this shelter. And I understand that. I'd rather stay at a hotel too. But you ever been in a desperate situation or been going through a hard time and somebody reaches out and is helpful and kind to you, and you just think about how appreciative you naturally are in that situation? These migrants weren't. And we expect them to go through the process and maybe one day become American citizens and become productive, contributing members of society, because that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I would say right now that the migrants who are currently in New York City, they will not become citizens. And the reason I say that is because under what law will they become citizens? If they're here to seek asylum, partying and having sex in a hotel room is not one of the 5 legal reasons that you can seek asylum. You have to be fleeing persecution of religious, political, problems in your home country and a few other reasons. And the reasons that they're here, I mean, we've heard interviews on the street. They're like, we're here to work. Well, guess what? That's great. But you have to come legally to want to work in the United States. It's not a reason to get asylum. And so these individuals, like you said, I mean, they're here. They believe that they are owed this by the American people because Democrats and those on the left have essentially conditioned them that, listen, you can come into this country. We can give you free cell phones. We can give you a place to live. We can let you have food. And hey, if you're one of the gotaways, have at it, right? And this is why Republicans especially want to impeach Mayorkas, because this is a man who has lost track of hundreds of thousands of migrants, a man who does not seem to see an urgent necessity to fix the border crisis. And until it affects more Democratic cities, I don't think we'll see a real action.
Great point. On that same note, Andy Biggs now joining Pat Fallon, calling for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. Take a look.
He must be impeached because he is a public official who has lost public trust and is an immediate, imminent threat to the United States of America. If we stopped his policies today, it would take a long, long time to reverse the damage that he has done.
What a hat.
It's a nice hat.
Remember in the old
Keeps it
days,
warm.
what are those called, Chris, those hats? Remember in the old days, like the 50s, 60s, everybody wore those hats.
Fedora?
I don't think it's called a fedora, though. I think that was what I said, too. But I think it had that was like the hat you wore. And JFK always said, I don't want to wear the hat, because you never want to be photographed in a funny hat. But I think we should bring those back.
It looks good. I like it.
Yeah. Does this happen? We haven't seen a cabinet secretary impeached since 1876. Does this happen, Chris?
I think the House may impeach him. Of course, it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate if it goes to that. I think this gentleman makes a very good point when it comes to national security. We heard reports the other day about an Iranian illegal immigrant that was caught at the border. There were great concerns that he was on a terror watch list. The government has told us that this person is not on a terror watch list, but I don't know if I would believe anything that they tell me. But, we had 250,000 people enter our country illegally in December, which is a record. 5.5 million people since the Biden administration took over.
Yeah.
Rob Allison, the state of Missouri, has 6 million people. So that just puts it in perspective.
Yeah, Democrats don't like people calling it the Biden border crisis.
They were fighting about that.
Those numbers, Chris, they don't lie.
Yeah.
They don't.
No.
All right. We'll pick this up top of the hour. Chris, by the way, I heard that you had a very big name on your radio show recently. We'll get into that top of the hour. Beyond Alignment, Chris Arps, thank you.